Walgrew Bar of Gurrumbilly Bar and Yongani, and to the south of Galbadiri, the Bindal people, and pay respects to their culture, their ancestors and their elders past and present and all future generations. Could I now ask Reverend Jeff Cook, the Anglican Church, please, if you could lead us off in prayer.
Thank you. Again, thank you for this opportunity. Remember this week, as we saw in the paper just this week, there's still 3,000 homes where people can't live in Townsville. Remember this week also Reconciliation Week. And we'll remember both of those as we pray. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your love for us. We thank you for the way you protect us. We remember so many people whose lives are still affected from the floods, who feel like the rest of the world's moved on. Lord, we ask you to be with them, give them your strength and courage they face each day. And Lord God, may you bring us together as one, reconciled with you and reconciled with each other. You made us in your likeness, and you gave us your Son. He has given us forgiveness. Bring us together as one, different cultures, but one life, together as a body and a people. Loving God, bring us together reconciled, healed and forgiven, sharing you with others. And Lord, we pray for this council, that as they lead the peoples of this place, grant them the wisdom, the skills, the imagination, the energy that they need in their leadership here. Amen.
All right, we have an apology. That is Councillor Mark Moreno. Do I have any other leave of absence? And I'll move in second all that in my motion. Are there any other? I wish to apply for a leave of absence on the 6th of June. I've been invited to take part in a rally in Brisbane around mining in Queensland as part of the QRC program. There will be many of the mayors from the mining sector are invited and are participating in this, and it will be a rally in Brisbane. So I seek to take a leave of absence for that. Are there any other leave of absence? If not, can I have someone move? Thank you, Councillor Walker, seconded Councillor Greeny, that we accept all apologies and leave of absence. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Confirmation of the previous minutes from the 30th of April. Can I have someone move the minutes? Thank you, Councillor Kern. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Sawes. Thank you. Are there anyone wish to speak against that or move any amendments? If not, I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. I'll now ask for a statement by the Chief Legal Officer around disclosures of interest.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through the Chair, as councillors know, there have been recent changes to the local government legislation as part of Operation Belcara that could affect an individual councillor's involvement in today's discussion. These changes are now live and introduce new obligations for councillors regarding how they manage personal interests in any council matters that may arise, including before a matter is considered at a formal council meeting. Councillors must consider if they have a personal interest, that is, a material personal interest, a real or a perceived conflict of interest in any item being considered at today's session. If a councillor has a material personal interest or a real conflict of interest or a perceived conflict of interest in a matter today, it should be declared as required under Local Government Act 2009. If a councillor at a meeting reasonably believes or reasonably suspects that another councillor has a material personal interest or a real conflict of interest or a perceived conflict of interest in a matter being discussed at the meeting today, and that councillor has not informed the meeting about the interest, the councillor must advise the chairperson of the meeting as soon as practicable about their belief or suspicion and the facts and circumstances that form the basis of that belief or suspicion.
With that, disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures of interest for this meeting? All right, there are none. Correspondence, CEO. Thank you. Any petitions? No, we were to have a deputation on item 4. However, the presenter has not arrived, so we'll move on. Notices of motion, there are none. Presentations. Is there someone, a deputation for item 4? Do I have someone here? There is. All right. Then I will call upon you, if you could please, to present.
I've just got some plans as
Could
well.
I please ask you to give us your name and who you
yeah.
represent?
Sorry, I'm Thomas Askin, representing Milford Planning on behalf of Jane Riley for proposed subdivision development at Alice River.
Thank you.
Sorry, I just had some plans to circulate. Okay.
Okay, do you also provide any card access?
Yeah. So thank you very much for providing us the opportunity to present at this council meeting. Basically today we just wanted to discuss this development application that's currently before council for a rural residential subdivision out at Alice River. Basically, just to give you a little bit of background on the application, it was lodged in December 2018. And as you can see there, it seeks approval for subdivision of approximately 26 hectares of land on Granite Vale Road, 299 Granite Vale Road. So you can just see on the proposal plan there, the first plan there that's on that those sheets there. That just shows the proposed subdivision so that you can see that it's just a 1 into 2 lot subdivision. Basically that's formalising the lots that are already, I guess, separated by Granite Vale Road. The land is situated in the rural zone, and more specifically the mixed farming precinct. So basically the subdivision just separates the land into the eastern and western portions there. So basically there's 2 independent uses that are already operating on the land. So on the eastern portion, that contains a horse breeding facility and also training facility, and on the western land portion, there's also a paintball arena that currently operates there, an outdoor paintball arena. So basically, council's planning assessment of the application, I understand there's a recommendation for a refusal, citing non-compliances with the strategic framework, the rural zone code and the reconfiguring a lot code, I think also the bushfire hazard overlay code. But really the crux and key issues there are the lots not achieving the minimum lot size of 40 hectares and the fragmentation of agricultural land as well. So just to give a little bit of background as well, you can see there that there's also a land portion to the north-west of the subject land. That's lot 558. That was previously subdivided from the parent lot, being the lot that's under this development application. So that was approved in 2014 under the 2003 Thuringowa planning scheme. And really the assessment of that application dealt with the same issues that are being raised in this application. So the key issues being fragmentation and the minimum lot sizes, which under the old scheme was the same 40 hectares. We believe there are planning grounds and other relevant matters that warrant approval of the proposed subdivision. This is shown and I guess contextualised a little bit on the subdivision context map that's also there as well. So you can have a look at that plan there. And as you can see, the land is already fragmented by Granite Vale Road. There are independent uses already operating on the land. There's also, the subject land is surrounded by an approved rural residential subdivision, being the Mount Margaret Estate. Also, there are lots along Granite Vale Road that already present as individual parcels of land, and are basically subdivided by Granite Vale Road, and all are under the 40 hectare lot size as well. So I guess there is a little bit of precedence there as well that establishes that kind of development pattern along that stretch of road. I think it's also important to note that the productive capacity and management of the land doesn't necessarily change, irrespective of the land being owned by one person or two different people, because essentially the land is fragmented by Granite Vale Road, and therefore each land parcel requires its own infrastructure servicing, security arrangements, and resource inputs for those pieces of land. Also, there's a similar subdivision proposal that was in Gympie as well, and basically it was a very similar scenario to this, which involved subdivision of land that was already fragmented by, in Gympie it was, yep. That was basically a similar situation. Council officers had recommended for refusal, and that development went to the Planning and Environment Court, and the decision was changed to an approval on the basis that the court believed that it wasn't land fragmentation and the land was already fragmented. So look, they're essentially the key arguments and planning grounds that we believe support approval of the application. So I might just let George also speak. He's arrived now, so if he might like to add.
To wrap it up further. Yeah, to wrap it up all very briefly, sorry I got caught up with the security. Essentially what we're asking for council to do, as Tom's articulated, is to consider this application and approve it subject to the usual conditions that would apply to rural land. Council's considering this now rather than its officers because it can add value to this assessment process, and what we're asking for respectfully is that common sense be applied to how this decision's made. People say that town planning's really applied common sense, which sounds good, and what we'd be delighted to see happen is for council to think about this application in its context. When we had discussions with officers about this, it was suggested that this type of inquiry is seen every fortnight. For instance, for every 3 weeks there's a call that says that is a scenario like this, but there's really not any others that are. This site's surrounded by Mount Margaret Park residential development. We've got a piece of land that's bisected by a formed road, the same formed road that bisected another piece that was subdivided off 4 years ago. And fundamentally, we don't have a planning scheme that's that different from, we haven't had a policy change in the last 4 years that really justifies such a change in position. I know that there's difference in traffic, but the reality is that there's enough traffic on Granite Vale Road to make it very difficult for this property to be managed at one. Two key issues in this are fragmentation and lot size. The fact that each piece of this block of land is operated independently of each other, one's got paintball, one's used for horses, is a great indicator that those lot sizes are big enough to sustain their own independent uses. It makes sense that they can be subdivided. Fragmentation, it's referred to thoroughly in your recommendation, and it talks about further fragmentation. It doesn't talk about fragmentation from the start. What we're saying is that there is no further fragmentation. We've got a piece of land that's got the road running down the middle. Whether it's owned by one party or two doesn't change the level of fragmentation there, and that's really what we're asking council to look at. So we're looking for an approval ideally subject to conditions that would normally be applied to a rural subdivision of this nature.
We'll come back to this. I want to go through the rest of the parts of the agenda, and we will deal with this first up as part of the committee reports. So before we continue, I will ask, that was the deputation, thank you. Do we have notices of motion? None. Presentations? None. I will do the mayoral minute, and then I will ask for item 4 to be moved independently so the matter can be discussed. Okay, so I'll move through now to the mayoral minute. Fellow councillors, I rise to speak about an issue around rates and insurance charges, my apologies, through insurance charges. The Australian Competition and Consumer Commission is currently undertaking a large-scale inquiry into the Northern Australia insurance sector. The inquiry has already documented the dramatically high cost of insurance here in northern Queensland. It demonstrates that in Northern Australia, home and contents premiums have risen by 130% over the last 10 years, compared to just 50% for the rest of Australia. In the case of Townsville, North Queensland, the average home and content premium, excluding GST and state-levied stamp duties, is almost double the average reported for the rest of Australia. And as a result of these high levels, Townsville, North Queensland, residents and businesses pay on average double the level of taxation on insurance premium as that levied on the average Australian household. Council recently had the opportunity to contribute to this vital inquiry. Our submission recommends new compensation measures to offset the inequitable insurance costs in the north. In lieu of any alternative proposals, these could take the form of a significantly upgraded zonal tax offset. In addition, we are calling for the immediate state and federal reform so that GST and stamp duty is levied on the sum insured rather than the premium paid. This would end the double level of taxation burden currently imposed upon local residents. Most importantly, Council continues to call on both the state and federal governments to take a far and more committed approach to the development of the North. This means a real focus on regional equality and placemaking infrastructure investment, including investment in natural disaster risk mitigation measures. Most importantly, Council continues to call on both the state and federal governments to take a far more committed approach to developing the North. Finally, Council has expressed its desire to work with the ACCC inquiry into the future. We believe that our shared experience during this year's unprecedented monsoon disaster can provide crucial lessons for future insurance pricing and management. Indeed, throughout our city's recovery, we have invested heavily in working with insurance providers and providing the best claims experience for residents and businesses alike. We have accumulated considerable modelling and anecdotal and analytical data. Closer study of this information in conjunction with the ACCC has the potential to bear insights on how to improve damage mitigation and reduce prices. This approach has the express support of the Insurance Council and its members impacted by the monsoonal event. We are continuing to work directly with insurers and the Insurance Council of Australia to ensure that local tradies are used whenever possible while we rebuild our community. Councillors, I formally table our submission to the Northern Australian Insurance Inquiry and seek your endorsement to further develop relationships with the ACCC. So, councillors, I seek your formal support in that, and I move that our submission that has been given to the ACCC be endorsed, and and I know many of you have been working in the recovery process, that we continue to formalise relationships with the Insurance Council and the ACCC. So I seek that support. Thank you. All those in favour? Thank you. We will now move to committee items, and I might move the Planning and Development Committee up and seek, with the leave of the committee chair, that we now discuss item 4. Traditionally, deputations are taken at committee, and I note that you were invited to speak to committee, but for some reason did not attend. Now, I will formally ask our staff to provide a response to the deputations made in relation to item 4. And if I could ask the... Thank you. Ebba?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The acknowledged interpretation that was provided to councillors, from a practical, from a technical perspective, what was presented today isn't anything different to what councillors...
Just speak up, please.
Sorry.
Perhaps stand up.
Sure. Just acknowledge the deputation that was made to councillors today. The issues raised in the deputation hasn't changed my mind in relation to the officer's recommendation. The issues raised today, I think, have been acknowledged in the past in terms of council officers considering this application. If I refer councillors back to the council report and the officer's report, council officers have always been consistent in relation to the advice that's been presented to the applicant and to the landowner. There's been 2 pre-lodgement applications regarding this item. Both times, council officers advised that they were unsupportive of the development application proceeding. The reasons for not supporting the application are consistent but very practical. They're on planning grounds. It's inconsistent with the strategic planning objectives of our planning scheme. It's inconsistent with the lot size. It's inconsistent with the codes outlined in relation to the officer recommendation. It will create fragmentation. There's lots of properties throughout the city areas, the city bounds. They're actually split by roads. That's a known fact. The example given in relation to the example, it's hard to actually provide specific comment to that example because every application has to be addressed on its merits. So without actually understanding exactly the detail as to why that decision was made, it's hard to provide comment. But just purely based on the planning scheme, the codes providing the planning scheme, the strategic planning objectives, splitting the lot into 2, it's inconsistent with the planning scheme. The officer's recommendation is sound and I support it and take it into consideration.
All right. Does the chair of committee have any further comment to make on this?
Not this stage, Madam Mayor.
Okay. So I just have a question. In terms of the strategic framework, you note that the current application is already undersized and spatial fragmentation cannot be accepted as justification under the strategic framework. Is that correct?
Correct. Excuse me, Madam Mayor, just to provide more context.
Yeah.
I anticipate there'll be a lot of other lots in a rural area that are already under the existing 40 hectare minimum requirement. So it's not justification to subdivide those portions.
And I note that we're under considerable pressure on our rural roads at the moment in terms of our budget discussions. So the more we seem to fragment, the more there's a demand then for further infrastructure. Yes, I'll look for questions. I'll go Councillor Greening and then Councillor Ryder.
Oh, sorry, and this may be directed at Mr Askin, Madam Chair, but the lots that have previously been subdivided that he mentioned set a precedent. Can he advise were they set under the old city plan of Farrangower?
I'm not entirely sure, but I think that it's fair to say that they would have been under that scheme or scheme property.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair,
Yep.
that is referenced in the
Yep.
office report.
Thank you.
All right. Councillor Ryder, do you have a question?
I probably have some comments, Madam Chair, because I agree with the comments by Milford Planning in regards to the fragmentation, because I agree that it's no different from what's already there. This is my feelings. And the current road already separates it. So to me, and I've only been in the role just over 3 years, but the proposals that I feel that we've knocked back based on the Planning Act, and I know I've got to be reminded about that, but I've never seen one come in with a road that's already got it split up anyway. So I understand that each lot have got to have their own power and water. So it's going to happen, it's there anyway, and I know there's a Planning Act, but again, common sense. I just think that this decision, and in regards to your comment for the rural roads, the road's already there. I don't see any more burden on making a split.
Yes, Councillor Joe.
I do agree with Margie on that particular one, and the councillor, that it is already fragmented. I listened to what was explained to us, and it is a common sense thing for me, and I do agree with Councillor Ryder.
Thank you. Councillor Walker.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. Look, just to keep mindful with this, there has been a block taken before. This is not a block getting taken to, this is the third piece. So we should be mindful. One's already taken off, the second one's been taken off. And understand what the request is. The next request would be where the creek goes through the block on a larger piece, we cut that piece off too. So we can always use different arguments of roads, creeks, fence lines to cut blocks off. But if you look at this block in its entirety and what we're getting to have, is not what the intent is. We went from one block, now it's going to go into 3. Just be mindful, where does it stop? And we got these requests coming in my division, and we say no. And then we have issues in the drought, where's the water? I've had requests for water to be trucked in because we allow blocks to become too small to be sufficient. I can understand the request, but it's not sustainable. And we have to be mindful of the end consumer that ends up with this block. It's not what the intent is. The intent is to get the right outcomes, sustainable outcomes, that the end purchaser gets the desired outcome as well. We have to respect the purchaser. This is not going to be a skirmish or a painful park forever. So we should be mindful. We've got to maintain control of what our intent is with these blocks. I know, I can understand why the request is there, but this is just a domino effect that we have to avoid. Thank you.
Are there any further comments? So I just want to close by saying that we have a number of blocks where roads go through them. I can think of a couple in Woodstock, where property owners have roads directly through the middle of them, as well as various ones in your division, Councillor Ryder. In fact, a number of them. While it might seem like it looks like the right thing to do, I have to agree with Councillor Walker's summation that we've already allowed one block off this. Now there's a second, and where will it end? And I keep reminding councillors that we have a strategic framework we need to work within and draw a line in the sand. It was part of the reason why the state government amalgamated the 2 councils, was to ensure that the planning scheme, that we had an overall planning scheme that was functional. It supported our strategic framework when we placed our planning scheme for government review. And I'm loath to keep going back and taking little bites saying, oh, it doesn't apply to this and it doesn't apply to that, because we have to give landowners certainty, not just the owners who come in, but the owners around the properties, that if they purchase, that amenity that they purchase will remain. That if they purchase 40 hectares, that we're not going to allow their neighbour to then subdivide in and around them. All right, councillors, I will now put that to the vote. Councillor Jacob, I said I would have the closing remark.
Yes, sorry.
All right, I wish to remind you. So we have the recommendation that we support the officer's recommendation. If I can ask you now to go back to item 4 on your agenda, that we support the officer's recommendations based around, firstly, the strategic framework, secondly, the rural zone code, thirdly, the bushfire hazard overlay code, fourth, the reconfiguration lot code, so that we support that, and that the fact that they feel the applicant has not demonstrated that there are any other relevant matters that council could justify approval for this development, despite the conflicts within the Townsville City Council plan. And finally, it is not considered that reasonable and relevant enforceable and final conditions can be imposed to remedy the non-compliance with the relevant assessment matters. So I will ask someone to move that we accept the officer's recommendation. Can I have someone move? Thank you, Councillor Walker, seconded Councillor Raybine. I will put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? So can I ask Councillor Jacob firstly, for what are your planning reasons for not accepting the recommendation?
Yeah, certainly, Madam Mayor, and through the Chair, I believe that the argument I heard beforehand, that it is already fragmented. I am worried about the fact that Council may have to answer a legal case over
I'm
this.
sorry, Councillor, it has to be on planning grounds, not that we might.
Yeah.
You're aware that under the Act, if you move against an officer's recommendation, particularly under the planning scheme, you must submit planning reasons why.
Certainly, through the Chair, I don't think that we're maintaining any flexibility in our planning, and this is taking away that flexibility.
Again, is it about that you don't agree? I can only stress that the reasons you vote against a planning item is under the Act, you must provide reasons, and the reasons should be about either based around the Act or the relevant conditions.
I would still like that one noted, but I would also like that my main reason is that the area in question is already fragmented, and I don't see anything wrong with this proposal.
All right, Councillor. Thank you. Councillor Ryder.
I agree with the Norfolk Planning comments in regards to the fragmentation, as I don't see it any different from what's already there, because the road currently separates the property.
All right, Councillor. As I stress, when you deal with these matters, it's always advisable to look to quote whether or not you're talking about reconfiguration, not just fragmentation. So I'll leave it at that.
I only got the update today, so if I have more time to read.
I agree, and as I said, we did invite Mr Milford to speak at the planning meeting, which would have given councillors more time.
To be fair, that wasn't actually passed on to us.
Am I?
Chair, I can clarify that there was a misunderstanding between whether the invitation was to committee or to council, so
All
it's not part of the applicant's misconception.
All right, thank you, councillors. We'll now move on to the rest of the Planning and Development Committee, if I can. Councillor.
Okay, so you're going to proceed on to infrastructure first? Okay, and then I'll move the Planning and Development Committee, items 5 to 8, pages 6 to 22 in the agenda before us.
Thank you, councillor. Do I have a second, please? Thank you, councillor Soares. Is there any discussion from the chair in the first, or from councillors and the chair?
I'll reserve the right opinion.
Thank you. Any?
Madam Mayor, I would just like to say that the Magnetic Island Trails and the draft vision plan is a great piece of work, and it's really exciting to actually see that come to fruition, and I'd like to thank Jonathan Hughes and the staff involved. As I said, a great body of work, and I'm sure that it will be well received not only by the Townsville community but from a tourism point of view as well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, any other comments?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I have a mover and seconder for those items. If there's no further comment, I will put it to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. I'll now ask Councillor Walker, please, to present the report of Infrastructure and Services Committee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move items 1 to 3 on the Infrastructure Services Committee. pages 1 to 3. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Sawes again. Any comments?
Not for me, Madam Mayor.
All right. Can I compliment the staff on item 3? The savings that they've been able to obtain on the supply and lay of asphalt. And in fact, they're significant savings. So thank you for that. I think that'll help with our budget bottom line. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Could I now ask Councillor Greenie to present her Community Health and Environment Committee report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to present the Community Health and Environment Committee agenda from Wednesday the 15th of May, items 9 to 13, contained in pages 23 to 27 of the report. Thank you.
Can I have a seconder, please, who attended the meeting? Thank you, Councillor Ryder. Are there any issues you wish to raise through the Chair or Council?
No, the presentations were very good, Mayor. I would actually like to highlight the animal management initiatives that Melissa McEwen and her team delivered. And while we seem to have a lot of keyboard warriors on Facebook that want to attack Council's animal management initiatives, I would like to actually point out that our open days at the animal shelter facilities on the 6th and 7th of April resulted in 48 pets, 26 cats and 22 dogs finding new homes, and the one on the 4th and the 5th of May resulted in 35 pets, which was 20 cats and 16 dogs finding homes. And all these animals are desexed, microchips, vaccinated, wormed and registered prior to being rehomed. The open days have been very successful, with a lot of people coming through the shelters. I'd also like to point out that since January 2018, 11 free microchipping events have occurred across the city, with a total of 564 dogs and cats being microchipped, and we plan to hold another 8 in the coming year. And I think this year Pet Expo will be bigger and better than it ever has been before. So congratulations to Melissa and her team on her initiatives. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other comments? Can I also put a shout out there? There is another animal shelter open day on the 1st of 2nd of June. So to any of you who need a pet,
It's very good. Thank you.
please, it would be welcomed. All right, with that, if there's no further comments, I have a mover and a seconder. I will put the committee report to Council for adoption. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. I will now call on Councillor Colleen Doyle to move her Community and Cultural Development Committee.
Madam Chair, I wish to present the report from the Community and Cultural Development Committee Wednesday the 15th of May 2019.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder?
Sorry, I was
Councillor Green?
Reports numbers 14 through to 17.
My apologies, Councillor. So we're moving reports 14 to 17 on our Council agenda. Councillor Greenie, seconder. Thank you. Do you have any comments?
Madam Mayor, I just want to draw Council's attention to the arts recognition strategy that's contained within the report. And just to highlight that this strategy, which is a council document, sits within the strategic art framework, which is a community-based document. So it's a strategic action plan for arts and culture within the city. So a document that's driven from community desire, requests and articulated need, and delivered through our arts and cultural team. So I think a good relationship obviously exists between the community and the arts and cultural practitioners and our staff. So well done to the team. Thank you.
Are there any further discussions from any of the councillors? Because we have a number of committee reports from our advisory committees. No further discussion? I thought you might want to talk about your Safety Advisory Committee, but that's fine.
I've got a few things up my sleeve for the next one.
Now we know why you've got a jacket on.
Yeah, take up a seat on.
It's not hot.
Thank you, Councillor. All right. With that, if there's no further discussion, I'll put the committee report to Council for adoption. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. I will ask Councillor Raybine to move the Governance and Finance Committee report, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I wish to present the Governance and Finance Committee report from 16th of May this year. Of course, items 18 to 25 on the ordinary council agenda contain pages 32 to 39.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Source, thank you. Any comment from the acting chair?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Look, I'll just point out that the corporate plan, of course, is presented to Council today, and just like to acknowledge the good work of staff in completing that. It's a well presented report, and was a good community engagement process involved in putting it together, and there was a number of community members or residents that actually had some input into it, which was good to see. The other item, just for noting, Madam Mayor, is that item 25, that course has been cancelled, so that's just for noting as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right. Any further comments?
Well, I'd just like to thank Councillor Raybine for acting in my place while I wasn't here. You might get the job on a more regular basis, maybe. Did such a great job.
Oh, thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, councillors. The corporate plan, can I, yes, Councillor Doyle?
So I was going to comment on the corporate plan, but I can go after you, Madam Mayor.
You may corporate. You may comment.
Madam Mayor, I just wanted to comment on the inclusion of the word resilient within the updated plan. Given what the city has been through with the monsoonal event in February, it's important to note and acknowledge that resilience has played a huge part in our recovery and will continue to play a huge part. So I think it's an underutilised and I suppose, supported word in that the city is resilient, and we want to continue to foster and develop that resilience.
Thank you. And I want to thank all the staff and the councillors involved. It was a very good round of consultation. So with that, we'll move. We have a mover and seconder. We'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. I'll now call on Councillor Cook to present his committee report on Townsville Water and Waste.
Yes, Madam Mayor, thank you. I wish to present the Townsville Water and Waste Standing Committee report from Thursday the 16th of May 2019, items 26 and 27 contained within pages 40 and 41 of the Ordinary Council agenda.
Do I have a seconder, please? Councillor Walker, thank you. Any comment from the chair?
Yes, Madam Mayor, just regarding the waste and recycling collection optimisation. I'd just like to thank the Townsville City Council staff, water and waste staff, for their diligent, methodical and systematic approach in preparing this document, so the least amount of Townsville ratepayers have the minimum amount of change to their weekly waste pickup routines. It's outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor, we have to, part of our mantra now is simpler, faster, better. So I think this was a very good report. All right, any further comments from councillors? Yes, Councillor Doyle?
Just one, Madam Mayor, in support of what Councillor Cook has said in relation to utilising evidence-based data to support the actions that this council takes. It's important to note that every action we take is based on evidence that's presented and collected.
Thank you, Councillor. And I think that is important for us to keep highlighting to the community. In fact, I believe that part of the discussion was the GPS now we have on our garbage, on our waste trucks, has resulted in an inordinate amount of saving in terms of time and route designation.
Yes, it takes a lot of pre-planning over there, but there is some major savings out there in those efficiencies.
Yeah, thank you for that. All right, if there's no further comment, we'll put this report up for adoption. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. That are the committee reports. We'll now move, we have two reports, 28 and addendum 29. 28 is part of open council. So business services, finance, performance, management report quarter. CEO.
Can I ask the Director of Business Services?
You certainly can.
Through the Chair, presenting the corporate performance report for quarter 3.
So just noting in that report that we are showing approximately 70% complete or on track action items of our 121 deliverables, with positive progress to complete the deliverables by June 30. It is worth noting during that Q3 that we did experience our unprecedented monsoonal event, and significant efforts were directed to that event at the time. So the Q3 report does provide an update on the rain event. It is worth noting that financials represented for the divisional reports are inclusive of those CDO and our merchant works for that period. So of our 90 days to complete those works, they ran through Q3 and into Q4. So for our Q4 report, we will extract all CDO and merchant works funding, and we'll present that separately to you as well.
So, Stacey, just before you sit down, it's probably worthwhile in this forum to talk about, at the moment, the capital plan, because I know from a budget perspective we are behind, and elaborate on that for some of the councillors in the room.
The current advice with capital plan, some of the delays have been due to the rain event, but current advice is that we will deliver the capital plan by 30 June as expected.
So there was a bump.
If I may,
yes, sir.
Madam Mayor, in support of the Director's comments, in effect after the rain event, the quantum of capital program that had been impacted on was substantially higher than it currently sits. We will have caught up all of that program by the end of June, whilst at the same time having delivered a substantive quantum of what is known as emergent works that came about as a result of the rain event itself. The evaluation process that we're going through at the moment, in particular around disaster recovery funding arrangements as they're established by the Commonwealth Government and supported by the state government, is an issue that we're awaiting confirmation of. However, it hasn't altered the resolve of the organisation through business as usual to meet all capital requirements by the 30th of June, and in fact have completed all emergent works in preparation to move on to reconstruction, which will take a considerable period of time. So I commend the staff, Madam Mayor, for incredibly hard work considering the duties that they performed to support the city through the flood event itself.
Thank you. And I know many of us recognise the difficulty many of the staff from the top right down to the very bottom have had as part of the process. Obviously, with the rain event, we've seen emergent works that have required repair or restoration, immediate restoration, as well as the problems with business as usual. So trying to run reconstruction in parallel with business as usual will be the next phase as we move through this process.
Yep.
So there's still a lot to do. Thank you, Stacey. Are there any other questions of staff or comments around the operational plan? Councillor Dawes.
Another, I suppose, comment to reiterate that many of our own staff had their own homes damaged during that time, and so not only were they dealing with their own personal issues like many people within our community, but they were involved in rebuilding and getting the city back on track. So no mean feat. So I'd again like to congratulate staff for not only getting through the emergent works, getting the city back on track, but committing to having everything done by 30 June.
Thank you.
All right. Can I have someone move that the council receive the corporate performance report for Q3 2018 and 19, being the period 1st of January to the 31st of March 2000. Thank you, Councillor Walker. Seconded Councillor Coon. Being no further discussion, I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We have one item that is in confidential. So if I can, could I have someone move that this report is in confidential in accordance with Section 275 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, as it relates to contracts proposed to be made by it. So with that, Councillor Walker, we move into confidential, seconded Councillor Sawes. I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? Against? Carried unanimously. Could I please ask all persons not involved in this general business? Sorry, Councillor Jacob, yes?
Through the chair, I'd like to seek council's approval to attend a conference in Sydney, 2nd to the 4th of September. The conference
Could I,
is-
just a moment, could I ask all phones please to be on
So that was just feedback.
feedback? All right, my apologies.
Yeah, the conference is the Intelligent Transport Mobility as a Service Global Forum in Sydney. It's got some great speakers from the Queensland Transport Department, from NRMA, from Suncorp, from New South Wales Transport. And the reason why I would like to do this, because in our corporate plan for year 20 to 24, there are 2 items that interest me greatly as a councillor and possibly as a future councillor, to ensure the Townsville Regional Integrated Transport Plan meets and adapts to Townsville's growing requirements, monitor transport planning through Townsville Transport Advisory Council. I would really like to stay up to date on this topic if the councillors will approve me going to that conference.
Where's it at, sorry?
It's in Sydney.
I think it'd be great. I support that, Madam Mayor, to be informed more and share that with all of us. I think we have.
Yeah, on his return.
Well, just I want to check, CEO, are you sending anyone to this conference, or do you see it worthwhile?
I see the conference as being worthwhile, but at this stage I'm not sending any officers to this conference. I'm aware that there's a couple of presenters that are in fact, one of them is a part of the state government.
Neil Scars.
The head of the Department of Transport, and another one is the Deputy Director General of the Department of Transport and Strategy, or Strategic Transport in New South Wales, Claire Gardner-Barnes, who is an old colleague of mine. So my intention from an officer's point of view is to deal directly with them, but I see the reasoning behind Councillor Jacobs' request.
Councillor, there is often conferences through the LGAQ that are just as informative and far cheaper. Have you considered one of those?
No, I was invited to this conference last night and I ran right through and saw who the speakers were and the relevance.
We all received the email.
Yes, but I saw that, as an opportunity to, as a councillor, gain more information for the future for transport for Townsville.
Look, it was one I must admit I put in the delete bin, but if the council is happy to support you on this, are you moving to take a leave of absence?
I am, from the 4th until the 2nd until the 4th of September.
Could we please note that leave of absence? All right, and we'll move to accept. I would have preferred this to have gone through our traditional process, Council, which is through committee for discussion. Is there any reason why this couldn't have gone through the committee process?
Yes, Madam Mayor. We all only received this last night, and I wasn't available for any of the committees last time because I was on 3 weeks leave. Another reason why I want this to go through is because there is a super early bird fee for this particular conference, and it differs by about $500 if we do it later. So if we put it through...
These conferences are quite expensive because they're run by private groups.
Yes, they are.
That's part of the problem. That's why I encourage going through, when the LGAQ put these together, they're far more affordable.
So through the chair, can I ask a question?
Yes,
Councillor. When's the cut-off date for early bird? Paul?
The cut-off date to the early bird is the 10th of June.
That's the infrastructure meeting.
That email came out about 2 weeks ago.
And second question through the chair, what is the cost? I haven't...
No, the cost for the early bird is $2,595.
That's very expensive.
That involves the 2-day main forum and 1-day post-forum site tour of all the different facilities in Sydney. They're implementing some of these programs in transport. There is a 2-day main forum, which is $1,995 in the super early bird fee. I chose the latter, item B, because I would like to see the innovation that is going on in the city, and also there is a lot of innovation in Sydney, as you know, with driverless trains and all these sort of things happening, and I would like to stay abreast of all that information.
So, just for discussion, I suppose, Councillor Molokino is not here and he actually chairs our infrastructure committee, who would probably more normally be a better fit for this particular one. I'm just wondering if he has the opportunity as well, or whether we consider an either-or situation.
Well, unfortunately, Councillor Molokino isn't here, and this has been brought up in general business.
So we have to deal.
We really do have to deal with it. Councillor Doyle?
So through the chair, could we just not approve a councillor to attend and discuss the relevance of which councillor is a more suited fit? I mean, Councillor Jacobs raised, if he's raised some valid points in terms of attending, each councillor has an opportunity to access education for the betterment of the city. I just think we need to, if we agree it's a relevant conference, decide on who wants Councillor Molokino.
But Councillor Jacob is seeking leave of council to attend a conference in council's support for the payment of the fees, and I would imagine all associated travel to and from the conference. That is the motion. All right. I think we just deal with that. All right. So, are you moving that, Councillor Jacob? I'm moving that. All right. Seconded by Councillor Walker. All those in favour in granting leave for Councillor Jacob to attend this conference and all payments associated, please raise their hand. All those against? Carried. Thank you. Are there any other items for general business? If not, I'll close the meeting at 2:34. Thank you all for your attendance.